let's talk to Adam from North Carolina. Adam, we got you next here on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
Hey, I wanted to say thank you for taking my call. And first off, Kelley, you rock. Like, it's also a joke in that. But the ending of that call actually
Thank you.
goes
Thank
to
you.
what I'm going to talk about here. Because, oh, you're welcome. One of the things is, trying to change people's minds and interests. And I'll get more into that in a moment. But I was lit up smiling as Kelley was talking about, hey, John, I appreciate you and I'm wishing the best for you. All those things you said, I want the best for you. I was like, wow, that is how you change minds. And Dan, all I have to say to you is, where's Bingo? I have to know. Just where's Bingo?
Oh man, Bingo. We were just joking about this before the show. Bingo is a copyright owned by ObjectivelyDan, and if he's going to be on the ACA's shows, then the ACA is going to have to pay me royalties, and I don't know if they want to do that. Yeah, Bingo's, he'll make a comeback for sure.
I'll check out some of the Dan's. Well, not mentioning other shows, but.
You can mention it. You absolutely go ahead. It's just me. That's kind of the rule there. So
Got it.
Yeah.
Dan to say it anyways. So my call is kind of on the. If you ever heard of the book How to Win Friends and Influence People,
yep.
And when it comes to kind of being a representative of, well, let's say atheism. We don't go to the political world here, but if you're trying to win people over, you really have to do, I'd say, three things. And Kelley was just on fire with the last one, which was showing genuine interest in others. And Dan or Kelley, have you ever had that friend or family member, when you see them, they either pat you on the shoulder, they give you a hug, they just like, you get that warm feeling like when you see them, it's like they want to see you. It's like they light up when they see you.
I try to be that person.
I like that. And I think I think you can tell people feel that. And like, I can think of a few of my family members that they're always so excited to see you. They're like, Adam, and you're like, oh, hey. And I thought of something a little while ago. It's not better to be recognized. It's better to recognize people and using people's names when you see them, like John, saying, hey, John, how are you doing? People really respond to that, especially if they forget your name. They're like, oh, wow, they remember my name, but I don't remember theirs. And I think the hardest thing for us to like change minds, and I definitely want your thoughts on this, and this is the hard part, is there's so much bad in the world. There's transphobia, there's homophobia, there's hatred, there's bigotry. And a guy named Daryl Davis, I'm sure you've probably heard that name, changed a lot of people's minds who had very bad thoughts. And I think you have to, meet these people. You have to have them respect you. And then you have to let them know maybe there's a better way. And you can't come out and the first time you meet them, start condemning them. Even though, I want to. I don't know your thoughts on all this, but if you just start condemning people on the street like the street preachers do, you're turning more people away.
Yeah, this is one of the reasons why I advocate for street epistemology and have been. The problem is, with this show, we don't really do that all the time, right? Like with John, we're actively like propositioning for, hey, here's a difference in worldview that maybe you should adopt, right? Whereas a street epistemology doesn't really give those kinds of value statements or judgments unless, absolutely necessary. We don't want to like actively persuade or campaign on a specific idea. And I do that all the time on here. But to your point, right? I've read a lot of self-help books in my time. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's like one of the best ones because, there's a lot of just truths there that often go unnoticed. It's really about your personal disposition towards somebody is going to be one of the biggest influences in how you can talk to people about their ideas. The fact of the matter is you are more likely to change your family members' ideas about something than I ever could, because they have a relationship with you and they know you and there's a background there, regardless of the logic of something, right? Your personal relationships with people do matter. That's why gurus become as successful as they do, because people tend to trust when information is coming from particular personalities than coming from an anonymous source or even trusted news sources or publications because people are biased, and that's just how people operate. So yes, I do think that your behavior towards someone can actively influence the way you change people's minds, and I try to showcase that as much as I can on the show here. Yeah, I don't know. I think I broadly agree. I don't know. What do you think, Kelley?
Yeah, totally. It's way easier to change your friend's mind than change a stranger's mind. Mm-hmm. And it's something I talk to with a lot of atheists in chat rooms who are also talking to theists at the same time. And they'll get real aggressive right away. And all you're doing is you're just making the other person dig their toes in deeper. They're not even listening to you anymore. They're just reacting to what you're saying. So you're not convincing anybody at that point. And it's very important. Like I often talked about my right-wing evangelical friend. Unfortunately, a few weeks ago, we had a real falling out. I don't think we're going to be talking to each other again. But we stayed friends for a long time. And we did it because we made friends first. We had common interests, and we talked about those interests. And we became buddies. We went out fishing together. We went out rock hunting together. We went out just hiking in the woods together, and we got to know each other. And then we could have these more serious, these more intimate conversations. He and I never convinced each other, but it gave us the ability to have those conversations without yelling at each other. And I think that's really important, is that you need to show respect to the person that you're having the conversation with, because it'll make them show that respect back to you, for one, and for two, it'll help you have a civil conversation that might actually take you somewhere instead of just screaming at each other, if that makes any sense.
I think, Kelley, you're exactly right, because two things on this. One, I am very pro-choice, and I think if you take the right away from a woman to have bodily autonomy, I mean, that is horrific to me. And so I don't have that lived experience. So I can imagine for a lot of people, it can be very just aggravating to speak to someone who is pro-life, who maybe not even in the case of life of the mother, because there are those people. So I can see how that might get them not in the right, I should say this, maybe more aggravated and more condemning of the other person, which is fine. That is how someone feels, and it's valid. The issue becomes, it oftentimes can deepen the divide between us. And if you have that friend who has these views and you've gone through this, the real way you're changing someone's mind, if they start asking you questions, if they start saying, well, wait, why do you think that way? And so you're pro-choice, but what about, the babies or something? And you walk them through why you came to this viewpoint. And at that point, they're actually considering what you're saying and really listening. And that's the hardest part about this. And thank you guys for taking this call. And I see you shaking. You see, you're listening to me, and I appreciate that. But I think we, in our society, value the blood sport. We value the fighting. And I hate it, because I'm watching society crumble as Harris supporters are yelling at Trump supporters, and no one's listening to anybody. Not politics, no politics. I don't want to see society crumble. I disagree with a lot of things, and I want to be able to have conversations and change minds. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I appreciate that. What I will say is sometimes there can be an effect that being emotionally involved or invested in a position can be convincing. Most people, I would argue this. I think a lot of people who have found Atheist Community of Austin content probably first found it by the angry calls, right? It probably didn't first find it by some of the nicer calls. I'm willing to bet most of your experiences in finding Atheist Community of Austin content becomes that way. And there is something to that. Sometimes we just want to see people take other people down, or sometimes we just want to see people freak out, right? And there's definitely been a freak out moment or two that's happened on our programs. So it's kind of hard, because at one level that does generate legitimate attention. And how many people have I personally talked to who have said, yeah, I heard, this ACA host or whatever talk about this thing or give this takedown or whatever. And I needed to hear that. right? Like I needed to, I never heard it explained to me in that way, and that changed my mind. I mean, that legitimately happens as well. I can't discount that there is a place for that. When we talk about people's issues that don't pertain to us personally, right? I'm a cisgendered, white guy, right? So abortion doesn't affect me as heavily as it does for a cis woman, for example. I can talk about it, at a more emotionally sort of a level position, because like I don't have as much personal investment in the issue, right? I mean, yeah, it does affect me, but not as much as it does for people who have the capacity to give birth. So there is a privilege aspect to that as well. I can't just tell people, hey, you need to, be more agreeable, okay, as a Black person, when somebody is saying that you deserve to be like lynched or something, right? Or you deserve to not have a place in our country. I can't do that. I don't think that's my place to do that. I think what I can do, from an intersectional perspective, is advocate for these things, right? And do my best to use my privilege in a way that makes the issue more accessible to audiences that otherwise wouldn't be consuming that kind of content or wouldn't be considering those kinds of ideas. I think that there is a time and a place to be emotionally passionate about the issues, just as there is to be a little bit more distanced, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's a lot of thoughts from me. Kelley, how about you?
Yeah, no, that was, I don't know how to say it any better than you just did, honestly, then. That was great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I really do look at what's happening in our country today, and it is really sad that what you just brought up. There is a really, really bad discourse in our country between opposing sides. I don't know why we've gotten this idea that violence is the way to resolve things, and I'm even afraid that we might be in a cold civil war right now. But I'm hoping that we can get through it. And maybe if people like you and I, Adam, talk to others, and maybe we can look to a brighter future.
Yeah, and thank you guys for your time. One, I think, Dan, you're right that emotion has a good place in conversation, especially with those who are close to you, like family members and friends, showing them, being sincere with them, being open with them. That is hugely important for changing minds. So please be open and honest with family and friends and have good relationships with them. And then two, I just want to give a special thank you to Darth Dawkins for all those great early conversations and all the atheists he's brought over. Thank you, Darth Dawkins.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, how many people have come to our content because of those calls? Look, I've seen the numbers, okay? The most popular clips that come from the atheist community of Austin, I don't think a single one of them has been oh, how do you do? It's the big mean ones. But I mean, I'm okay with that if that means it got people in, right? To have those sort of longer form conversations, right? To have those sort of settled conversations. I think, is it a trade-off? Sure. But I think it'd be one I'd be willing to make if it means making a meaningful difference. I don't want to just have this shouty conversations just to bully people or to, I don't know, have an ego boost from it. That's certainly not why I'm interested in it. I really am interested in meaningful change. And sometimes meaningful change comes from shouting from the rooftops when you see something is amiss, right? Sometimes it does mean taking immediate action or calling people out on bullshit. I do think, again, there's a time and a place, but it's a trade-off. It's a balance. So there you go. Adam, I am going to let you go because we do have some other folks who want to talk to us, and I'd like to get to them. But thank you so much for calling in and sharing your perspective.